Bug, my W is for Wish segment, ABC's of Death 2.
Damn. Hey, 3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys growing on you live. Today, we're going to have my man, Steven Kostanski, my dude. I cannot wait to talk about all the movies that he's got going, all the shorts that he's got, some new stuff that he's got coming out, some of the older classics that he's made. We're going to get this bad boy rolling. What's going on, man?
Hey, hold on.
I think... Man, we got it. Thank the Lord.
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can see you. We're good, man.
Awesome.
First of all, thank you so much for being on, dude. What a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So if you haven't seen the show before, basically we're going to start out with a couple icebreaker questions. The majority of the interview is going to be just about you and your craft, and then I have one finale question at the end that's just written just for you, my man.
Okay, cool.
So we're gonna dig right in, all right? So if you're all settled and you're comfy, we're gonna get going.
Yeah.
All right. So right off the top of your head, 3 of your favorite horror movies.
3 favorite horror movies: Dawn of the Dead, The Thing, Blair Witch Project.
Oh, okay. That's something a little bit different. I hear a lot of people that love it, but what was the earlier experience with that? Did you see it in theaters? Blair Witch?
No, I was too young to see it in theaters, but I remember the hype, and I remember people at school telling me that it was a real thing that happened, and that terrified me. I just put that because I feel like it's the only genuinely terrifying movies that gets away with not showing you anything, and it proves that what you don't see is the scariest thing ever. So, I haven't seen that have successfully pulled that off. Blair Witch, I think, really goes for it and accomplishes what most higher budget horror movies only wish they could accomplish. And
for sure.
So horrifying, it's like it just stays with you and just really gets under your skin. So yeah, it's like one of my favorites.
Hell yeah, that rules. That's awesome. That's a great answer. I love that. So moving on to, if I were traveling through Winnipeg, right, and I stopped by and I asked you, I said, Steven, what's a local food staple? What's a local restaurant I have to stop at?
Clear, I actually live in Toronto now. I haven't lived in Winnipeg for 10 years, but...
oh, really? Okay, my bad.
But as far as local food staple, I mean, there's a sushi place down the street from my parents' house that I really loved called Momo's, just because it was super cheap. But yeah, all my recommendations. My main recommendation would be to get a Slurpee because it's the Slurpee capital of
okay.
That's our big claim to fame, I guess. There's a 7-Eleven on pretty much every corner. So yeah, Slurpee. That's my answer.
Hell yeah. Okay. All right. My wife and I do a little bit of traveling, and it's kind of fun with different people that are out of state, out of country. I just like to ask, a little local thing that's a favorite of yours.
As far as a local Winnipeg thing that's a favorite of mine, I don't know, I feel like all the cool stuff that I liked is closing down and condos are being built on top of it.
Oh yeah, it sucks.
Smaller cheap seats cinema called Cinema City 8 that I used to go to, and that's where in the early 2000s I saw every movie for just a couple bucks. But nice. So that was a totally pointless answer. I mean, the Cinematheque is kind of the local more artsy theater in town, and it's home to the Winnipeg Film Group, uh, which is kind of like the hub of like filmmaking, like indie filmmaking in Manitoba. So I mean, I would recommend stopping by there and maybe seeing a movie there if you're ever allowed to see a movie in a theater again. I mean,
Right.
that's definitely up in the air. Uh, yeah, like those are the big ones, I think.
Okay, cool. What would you say is your horror origin? Where did it all start for you? What was a earlier watch or your first
Uh,
watch?
I didn't like horror movies as a kid. They scared me, and I was scared to go into the horror section. I remember seeing a cardboard cutout of Freddy Krueger from New Nightmare uh, at the entrance to the horror section and being really bothered by it. But I used to collect comics as a kid, and one comic had an ad for Army of Darkness in it, and
Oh yeah.
that that painted kind of Frazetta-esque cover got me really excited. And I thought it was just like a fun fantasy, like action comedy movie. So I rented that and watched it with some friends at a sleepover. I must have been like 12 or something. And it just blew my mind. And I remember thinking like, oh, is this what horror movies are? So I actually worked my way backwards through the Evil Dead trilogy. So Evil Dead 2 obviously is like a little less comedy. Like it's a bit more balanced in terms of horror and comedy. And then first Evil Dead's just full on horror. So by the time I got to that, I was sucked right into the horror genre, and I just I got switch flipped in my brain, and I was like, I just have to consume all of this. I think partially just as a way of like overcoming my fear of those movies as a kid, like
Right.
finally going and like attacking the whole Hellraiser franchise and getting over my fear of Pinhead and my fear of Freddy Krueger and all these characters that like tormented me as a kid. Like,
Right.
you know, you're a kid and like you aren't allowed to watch the movies, so your friends like with older siblings would watch them and then tell you the plot of the movie, and it all seemed way scarier than it actually was.
Right. Right.
For my cousin explaining the plots, like the overall like mythology of the Hellraiser movies, and it just really blowing my mind and seeming like the craziest thing ever. But yeah, like at early age, like early teens, I just started my way through franchises, which is like I feel like a high point of my life was just that like year of I would like go to the video store and be like, I'm just gonna rent all the Halloween movies this weekend, or like watching like Phantasm and being like, I guess I'll watch three more Phantasm movies, like just a cornucopia of like options, and because everything was a franchise, it was like you just had excess of the thing that you liked. So it's like if you like Freddy Krueger, 20 more movies where that came from. So
Right.
a real golden age for me of movie watching. And I don't feel like never really come back to that, which is unfortunate because it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great like creative uh, kind of like invigorating energy to get being able to just consume that much like insane content in a short period of and get that kind of diversity too. Like
Sure.
I don't feel like scrolling Netflix I quite have the same uh it doesn't quite have that same excitement of being in a
Right.
video store and flipping through like six different Puppet Master movies. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you could say, what are some scenes in specific, even, I mean, I know that you're a sci-fi and a fantasy fan as well. What are some scenes that you would say kind of have just ingrained in your brain from watching over the years?
Uh funny
Like, here's
story.
a little inspiration. I'll say, when I was younger, something that, and we're going to get into this a little bit later as well, but there's a scene in Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. You ever watch that one?
Oh yeah.
So the scene when Master from Master Blaster is getting dropped down into that bay of pigs, I don't know what it was, but it just terrified the shit out of me for the rest of my life. Ended up being something that just like wound up like ingraining and like ruined me for like Leprechaun and all sorts of stuff. But so that's kind of an inspiration of what I'm
Well,
coming from.
I have a story that's way lamer than that. When I was a kid, uh, I saw some channel was playing Demolition Man, but it was like the
Oh yeah.
uncut version. So I had seen a version that was edited, and hi Connor. Connor Sweeney is on right now, trying to get my attention. I was watching Demolition Man, and it was the uncut version, which I'd never seen. I guess I was like maybe 8 or 9, and it had the scene where Wesley Snipes like pulls the guy's eye out and uses his eye on a pen to like turn on the door scanner. It actually made me nauseous, and I remember stumbling into my parents' bedroom and fainting because I was so horrified by what I saw.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
the scene from a movie that freaked me out the most, it was that part in Demolition Man. Not in a horror, nothing actually.
Yeah.
Just for some reason, eye trauma as a kid freaked me out.
Yeah, okay. All right. There was, and that's kind of something too. Horror is based on, like terrifying images and scary scenes, but like another thing I had in mind too, I did a video on this like a few years ago, but another thing I was like racking my brain. You ever watch the movie Ransom? It's like an action movie with Mel Gibson.
Yeah, give me back my son. Yeah.
Yeah. So the scene where the little boy is laying in that room and the music is just pulsating and he's got the blindfold on for whatever reason, just that has bothered me for years. I mean, still up to this day, it's one of those things where it's just like terrifying.
Well, I think as a kid stuff, like the weirdest shit will like stay with you, like
Yeah.
unexpected stuff, like not the obvious things. It's always some weird thing that just like clicks in your brain and then freaks you out and forever. And there's like no real
Yeah.
explanation for it. It's just like a perfect storm of elements that lead to you being terrified for no
Right.
real.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. So now, as far as some of your features, I gotta ask, with you doing practical effects and props and things, have you kept any props from any of the movies that you worked on, and what's a favorite?
Uh, I mean, I got a few things over here.
Oh shit! All right.
Hold on.
Oh my God, that's
So
so
this is that guy
sick.
from the Void. Battlebug, my W's for Wish segment. ABC's of Death 2.
Damn.
What else do I got? I don't know. Just like random shit. So yeah, in conclusion, yes, I keep some of my stuff,
That is
but a lot of
awesome.
it,
That is so sick.
but a lot of it rots, and like foam latex doesn't last, and even silicone
Oh,
eventually comes apart. So yeah, you think that this stuff is just gonna like go on forever, but eventually it turns into actual rotten garbage, and you have to throw it out. Uh, so
okay.
I try to
Is
keep what
is
I
there anything? Oh, okay.
yeah.
Is there anything that helps conserve that for at least a longer period, or is it just something inevitably it's gonna
I
dwindle?
think the thing to do is to make like display versions of stuff. Like the stuff that you make for using on set is kind
Hmm.
of last because you're building it for mobility or just speed just to get it to set on time, not
Right.
necessarily to last. So I mean, like some masks that I make will last a lot longer. Like this guy over here,
Oh my God, that is fucking
he's
awesome.
built to last. There's my dog Bebop. He is not interested right now. Um, but okay.
All right, so digging into some of your shorts, some of your movies. First off, I gotta ask about Laser Ghosts 2, Return to Laser Cove. Uh, I don't know, as far as, tons of people love, The Void, love your work and different things. I think I have to say Laser Ghost 2 is my favorite thing that you have done. So my question for that
Thank
is, with such an array of characters, personalities, just one liner after one liner, just over, over galore. What was your favorite depiction from script to screen?
I mean, that's hard to say because I love everything in that short. I mean, even though there is some uh, like dated things about it that I wish I could go back and redo. But
I
there
love it.
is, I don't know. It was like the perfect like setup for me, where it's like I came up with a stupid concept that's very rooted in like Empire Pictures type movies. Like for some reason, was watching the trailer for Trancers 3 on a loop, like back in those favorite piece of content at the time. For some,
Uh-huh.
I kind of modeled the whole thing after that. But it was just that perfect setup of like I come up with a dumb idea, and then everybody else in Astron 6 just kind of takes it and makes it funny and like runs with all the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and really just me coming up with the dumb scenario, and then it's like Adam, Matt, Connor, and Jeremy making it awesome like on the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean it's a concept that would not survive like based on what was in the script. Like I think what actually ended up on screen is like a million times better than what I outlined. Just like once you get to set and start goofing off and riffing on things, it evolves into something totally different. And so, yeah, I think that's why that stuff works, and that's why Astron 6 stuff works, because it's like we come up with a framework, and then stuff just gets stupider and stupider as we. So yeah, that's that.
Perfect. Okay, okay, that is awesome. I love it. With the void, my question for that was, with all the amazing special effects and the practical effects, and just props and features that you had in the movie, was there anything that didn't end up making the cut, or was gonna end up being too much for the final version of the movie?
Oh, we had so much stuff in the script that was like totally unreasonable that like that looking back on it, like I don't know why me and Jeremy even like decided that was a good idea. Like there was, I believe in like a very early treatment, Dr. Powell turned into like this like giant spider thing that's like crawling on the ceiling, and it gets set on fire.
Oh,
Like it kind of like merged Dr. Powell in with the fetus. Yeah, so it was gonna like the climax was gonna be Dr. Powell's like this giant spider that's crawling on the ceiling,
okay.
and they were gonna set that on fire, and then there was gonna be a flaming spider monster, and yeah, it proved to be way too ambitious, obviously. So we ended up cutting it. We kind of like split it up into a few different things. So like Dr. Powell was one creature, and then the fetus monster was a different creature. So that took the like getting set on fire uh, kind of idea, and also the like getting chased down a hallway um, at the end, that collapsing hallway, and then
Okay.
yeah, obviously everything that's in the movie I wanted like bigger and to expand more upon, but just due to budget and time and resources, we just had to like scale it all back. So yeah,
Okay. And I mean, but even still, the end product was absolutely amazing, and the amount that you guys kind of crowdfunded in a sense, working with the practical effects and everything, it turned out awesome.
well, yeah, that was out of necessity because typically on movies, like when financing is actually locked in, it's so late in the game that you don't have time to build anything. Like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
really system that isn't conducive to actually being creative. So we opted to crowdfund our creature effects budget, which allowed us to start months before the movie even started building things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was the reason for doing a Indiegogo campaign,
Okay.
and got us the funds to like jumpstart that and start building
Okay, so
to it.
next for Leprechaun Returns, one of my favorite series. Honestly, I've always loved Leprechaun, and this was kind of what I was talking about earlier with Mad Max being, kind of scared of the little fellas running after me and whatnot. Leprechaun Returns was absolutely an awesome, just rebirth into the original movies, and honestly became one of my favorite sequels ever. I always loved Part Three. I know you had mentioned before your interest in Las Vegas and that movie, but this movie
Yeah,
came real close to being one of my favorites.
yeah. Part three was my major inspiration for Returns because that was I think is the best sequel.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I do really like Leprechaun in the Hood. I think that movie is a lot. But Leprechaun 3 just felt the most like I remember even watching it like when I was younger, thinking like, oh, for like a straight-to-video Leprechaun sequel, this seems to have like better production value.
Yeah, right.
So I think the lesson I took from that movie was like just have really crazy gags
Mm-hmm.
and just make everything as crazy as you can and like make the kills satisfying and have as
Mm-hmm.
many kills as possible and as much like effect stuff I tried to have like something every 5 minutes just to be like to hold people's interest, I guess. Because
Okay.
going into it, like they're being pretty conservative with the plot they chose. Uh, I mean, at this point, like Leprechaun's been to space in the hood. It's like you could keep pushing that, but they decided to dial it back to basically like pull it like a Halloween 2018 and just jump like jump from the original right to this movie and ignore everything else and kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep it in that movie. So, I mean, I understand them wanting to do that as far as like not alienating maybe new fans, though I'm unclear as to who would watch Leprechaun Returns and without being a Leprechaun fan to begin with.
Right.
But yeah, so my attitude was like, we'll just cram it full of stuff, so it's like feels satisfying in the way that yeah, watching something like Leprechaun 3 feels satisfying, where it's like they clearly put effort into it and like wanted to make a fun movie and kind of had to use what they had to make it work. So that was my
Sure.
attitude.
Okay. So initially, you weren't going to be directing the movie. You were with Master Effects, and you were going to be working on the practical effects for it. What
Our
was your earlier gags that you were thinking on before you even knew you were going to be directing the movie?
I didn't even really have time to like think about that stuff. The story
Oh.
was how the story goes is that I was at the shop working one day, and then the shop like coordinator Zane came up to me and was like, "Oh, I just got sent a script for a Leprechaun movie. Like, we might be doing gags for that." And I was like, "Oh, that's funny." And then like it was like that night or the next night or something, I got an email from my manager being like, "Oh, you want to direct this Leprechaun movie?" And so it was like weighing the options of like, do I want like to just make gags on this movie and just do the build for somebody else and have to be at the mercy of their ideas, or do I want to like run the show and also like feed that into my desire to make a bunch of crazy effects?
Hmm.
So it it was a no brainer in my opinion. Like, take that movie and do it because like I don't know. As I like started my film career like as a kid making little movies like stop motion movies and stuff, like it was always my fantasy to get handed a franchise. And like I remember telling myself even as like in my teens, like as a younger up and coming filmmaker, like just whatever it is, like even if it's something you don't love, like the fact that you're like jumping onto something that has a fan base and there's like an expectation, like there's like a fun challenge with that I
Hmm.
find appealing. And Leprechaun, full disclosure, is not my like go-to horror franchise, but I grew to
Hmm.
appreciate it a lot more as I was like rewatching all the movies and seeing like what the highlights were and also what the low points were, and learning that like a movie like that can't afford to be boring. So that goes back to what I was saying before about cramming it full of as gags and as much excitement as possible. It's like if you're gonna make a Leprechaun movie, it's gotta like fire on all cylinders uh, the whole runtime.
Sure.
So
Okay. And I gotta say, my favorite bit, and coming to know you and research you a little bit, and your love for Army of Darkness, is later in the movie when they're getting the power back onto the house, and then the leprechaun splits off into all of the smaller, miniature leprechauns. I was like, oh man, this is like just
that
embracingly inspired.
well, it was one of those things that was like a tipping point for me into jumping on the project. Was I had a conference call with the producer at Sci-Fi Channel, Josh, who like is a real genuine horror fan and like loves these kinds of movies and loves Leprechaun and has been fighting to get this movie made for years. And talking to him and him like saying he wanted it to have like an Army of Darkness tone, like immediately I was like, say no more. I will do that. Reading the script in that sequence, like being such a clear homage to Army of Darkness, I was like, okay, great. So I can just fully rip this sequence off and within the comfort of a Leprechaun sequel for Sci-Fi Channel and just have fun with it and not feel like, it's not necessarily plagiarism because it's.
So that was already in the script even before like you
Yeah,
had your hands on it. No
yeah.
shit. Wow.
It wasn't a thing that I like fought against. I was like, I'm going to embrace this and fully just run with it, and
Damn, that's awesome.
much as possible.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's sweet. Yeah, I absolutely love that part. That was like, that just blew my mind. I'm sitting there watching that, and then that sequence comes up, and I'm like, oh my! And all the fast zooms in, like the Evil Dead style. Beautiful, beautiful.
It was a
Um,
very vicious sequence that, as we were shooting it, I realized like, oh, maybe this is a little beyond our scope. And it was the kind of thing where, like, as we were editing, I was stressing out because I was like, I felt like we didn't have enough stuff to make it work. So I ended up taking all the blue screen footage we had and like all the raw plates and like cutting my own like rough version of it at home and then bringing it back to the editor because I like it took a lot of like cheating and kind of like reusing stuff to make it work because we only had Lyndon, who played the Leprechaun. Lyndon was on like a blue screen for some like half a day or something doing that scene, and
oh,
so we
okay.
didn't get as much as I'd hoped. And so yeah, there's a lot of cheats to pull that sequence off, but I think it
Hmm.
works really.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So, next I wanted to highlight and ask about your sequence for ABC's of Death. W is for Wish. Watching the making of, and you had some repurposing of action figures. Was there any regrets now for some of the ones that you ended up using for that?
Like regrets in terms of like having to destroy Jer's action figure collection to
Yeah,
make
right.
and Mind Lord Zorb.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think so. They're all the pieces are like sitting in a plastic Tupperware container somewhere in my apartment. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
I have no regrets about that short. I think that's feel like the best thing that I've ever been involved in. I'm very proud of that short. It's
No, no, no.
perfectly.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the short. I was just saying, as far as like, was there like a Star Wars like Anakin Skywalker or something that was like the perfect like figure that you were looking for that you had to repurpose the figure? The short is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that. I was just saying
It,
the action figures.
all the figures were like I think there was like a couple Street Fighter figures in there.
Mm.
Yeah, like I tried to actually like not wreck the more important ones. Like a lot of them were Jared's figures that he loaned me. So there was what's the guy's name from Clash of the Titans? Perseus.
Oh
So I
yeah.
like Perseus figure. Uh, what's that guy from the Michael Keaton Batman? Is it Bob? He's like a henchman, just like a random
Okay.
henchman figure could like kick for some reason. His his head was Fantasy Man's head. Yeah, so it was just like a lot of like random stuff mashed together. So what I did was I didn't like actually use the figures themselves. I molded them and then recast them to
Oh, okay.
make new figures. And so like the worst thing that happened to the figures was that they got a little grimy from the molding process. But
Okay.
I have to destroy anything to pull that off.
Oh, okay. See, I was watching the making of feature, and you're kind of sanding down figures. And I'm like, man, I wonder if they destroyed anything that they were kind of bummed out about afterward.
No, those were fresh cast pieces. Like that was
Okay,
all
sweet.
because I molded everything and then recast it again. So
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
done wrecking the original toys.
Got ya. Okay. So now, going from that short and then kind of seeing this full length movie, I feel like that almost kind of encompassed a little bit of the spirit of that short. And like I said, I absolutely love that. So I didn't want it to seem like I was knocking that by any means.
Oh no,
But you, your new movie PG, Psycho Gorman. Let's tell us about that. Tell us about that. And it's supposed to be coming to Shutter here soon, correct?
we're still working on when and how that's going to come out because obviously the world
Okay.
is upside down right now. The hope is to have some kind of theatrical release, but at the bare minimum, like it'll be on Blu-ray and DVD, and will be on Shutter at some point. Hopefully, aimed for the end of this year. So it'll come soon. It won't
Okay.
be too long. Um, yeah, as far as the movie itself, it's kind of like E.T., but if E.T. was like a murdering space overlord uh, who learns no valuable lessons throughout the course of the narrative and hangs out with and goes on crazy violent adventures. It
Oh
was
my
inspired
god.
my first time viewing of Rawhead Rex, where I got super watching it, and as I was watching it, I started like workshopping this idea in my head of like, well, what if these kids dug up a monster man? Like, he was kind of like this evil, like ancient god villain, and like the kids befriended him and went on like all sorts of like crazy misadventures. So that was where that started, and yeah, it just kind of grew from there and turned into a thing that kind of like Manborg or W's for Wish. It encompasses uh, more of my broader tastes, especially my like sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comedy, like genre mishmash stuff, like things like movies that Empire Pictures does, um, but with a splash of that kind of like Amblin Entertainment vibe of something like E.T. Um, mixed with a healthy dose of Terminator 2, I'd say.
Okay. Okay. All right. Awesome. So a point in the trailer I wanted to ask about was where did the idea come from with the bit where it says PG rated R? It shows the logo. That part is fucking hilarious.
That I mean, that was like the joke that came immediately after I came up with the title. Was like because I was thinking about ET and what like the simplicity of that title, and so I was like, well, what kind of dumb name can I come up with? So it was like a mashing of ET and Rawhead Rex because I love how dumb that title is. So yeah,
Right.
conveniently turned into PG, and then I was like, okay, it'd be funny if it was like PG rated R, and so that was the joke making all the way through making the movie, and so even though the movie officially doesn't have a rating yet for that first trailer, we were like, the
Right.
has to be PG rated R, and so yeah, where it came from.
That is awesome. All right, so now this next bit, okay, what we're gonna do is in 5 words or less, okay. I want you to describe or kind of paint a visual, a couple of the characters from Pscho Goreman. All right. So like I say, 5 words or less. First off, I want you to shoot me. Tell me about Dark Scream.
uh, Sniveling, backstabbing, chain whip asshole.
Oh, perfect. All right, 5. All right, love it. All right. So now number 2, we have Death Trapper.
Um, Garbage can, blood cannon man.
Oh my god. Okay, these are perfect. I love it. All right, number 3, the Cortex.
Sorry, say it again.
Cortex.
Uh, Weasley bureaucrat. Um, Foppish dandy man. I don't know.
Okay. Beautiful. And last but not least, Pscho Goreman.
Uh, Big, dickless, purple space.
Okay. All right. Oh my God, those are awesome. I love it. I was trying to think of how to ask about some of the characters, and sometimes just breaking it down in a couple of words is the best way to describe them.
I don't feel it answered anybody's questions. If anything, it just made more questions. But I think that's fine.
Right. That's good. That's good. It'll build a little suspense.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so this is concluding. It's been a long process, man. I truly appreciate you sticking out with me. I do have one finale question, but this is your opportunity to pitch what you have going on, some stuff that's coming up. Tell us about Pscho Goreman. Whatever you got going on, man.
Yeah, well, we're working on the special features for Doorman right now. We've got a lot of stuff in the works, lots of interviews, cast interviews, behind the scenes stuff. So expect the Blu-ray and DVD to be jam-packed. The way the way stuff used to be back when DVDs and even like I remember my Army of Darkness VHS tape had a bunch of bonus features on it, and that's what inspired me to making monsters in movies, because it showed all this behind the scenes stuff at Kane VFX, then making monsters. So yeah, I want to try and give that vibe again and have as much behind the scenes stuff that can hopefully inspire somebody to go out and make their own low budget monster movie out in the woods. As far as what else I got going on, I've spent a lot of time in quarantine doing stop motion animation on a little show, like a little series that I've been making. Will it ever see the light of day? I don't know, but I'm going to release little teases of it on my Kill Kostanski Instagram account occasionally.
Okay.
So yeah, out for that. Yeah, that's kind of all I'm allowed to talk about right now.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm not trying to pull any dirt or anything like that. Just do whatever you got going.
Yeah, well, I am jumping on a series in the next few weeks, but I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it yet. But that news will come soon.
Sweet, awesome. I can't wait. All right, so our finale. All right, I wrote it just for you, okay, and hopefully I'm hitting on a couple of key points for you. All right, so the finale, it's called "Come With Me If You Don't Want to Be Dead." Obviously inspired by Lazer Ghost 2. One of my favorite lines. Okay. So hypothetically, all right, for Come With Me If You Don't Want to Be Dead, hypothetically, Pscho Goreman was based on a true story. And it was based on a true story of your story, your life, okay? In this movie, your childhood wish came true that you got to have your very own T-800, all right? So with this T-800, with this responsibility, comes some badass monsters that you have to beat. What 3 horror villains do you have to beat to be the hero at the end of this movie with your T-800?
Well, I'd have to pick like pretty easy ones, like maybe like a ghoulie and
Nice.
And Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh my god!
And you know what? Up, I'm gonna say Gunther from Funhouse.
Oh man, that is so sick! Oh my god, the ghoulies.
I love the idea of a T-800 just unloading with his shotgun on a ghoulie.
That is amazing! Holy shit!
The other one that I forgot what I said, but anyways, those are my picks.
Ghoulies, Gunther from the Funhouse. What was the second one?
I already forgot what the second one was.
Oh,
that's
man. Okay. So if you had to say another, what would it be?
What's another shitty horror?
What would be the huge one, the finale that you had to really fight?
Godzilla, probably.
Oh yes, hell yeah.
No, not Godzilla. Gigan. Let's go with Gigan.
Ooh, okay.
Chest.
Hell yeah! All right, that is awesome, man. That is amazing. Like I say, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I truly appreciate it. We'll have all this edited, so all this crazy cuts and everything will be all good. And thank you truly for doing this, man. And I appreciate your art and everything that you're doing for the horror community.
Thank you. I like all your posters you have in the background. I'm jealous.
Thanks. You got some albums and some CEDs. You remember these?
Oh yeah. Oh nice. Wow.
Terrible technology, but yeah.
Yeah, but it makes for like a shelf.
Yeah, a little, just couple of things there. We got the old movies over here. You know what I'm saying? Little setup, man.
You got a nice little man cave.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to add Pscho Goreman to it, man. I got some cool stuff coming. I was hoping to have for the interview today, but I'll keep you in the loop here and show you what I got coming here of yours.
Sweet, please.
All right,
That'd be
man.
great.
Thank you so much, Lo-Fi Horror Guy, Steven Kostanski. You guys take care and stay safe. Stay safe, Steven. Thank you so much once again, man.
Thanks for having me. Talk to
All right,
you
buddy.
soon.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah.